chat, the screen chat open here on my side window. Doesn't mean that I always see that something new comes in, but if I see it, I will point it out.
All right, so we're going to start. So I wanted to welcome everybody. This is our second day of Small Biz Cares Week. My name is Naveen Bansal, founder of Small Biz Cares. And this morning, we're starting off with our first session. It's about emotional wellness for business leaders. And we have on here, two of our members, Spirit of Be Cool, who's a sponsor of Small Biz Cares here in Pennington, as well as Sandra Solano of Integra, who's also a member of Small Biz Cares. And we're going to discuss some topics regarding emotional wellness, which right now is very important given the time that we're in right now. So, definitely during the conversation, I know both Sandra and Eric wanted to be able to make sure that if you have questions, go ahead and ask those questions. Very, interactive conversation. But I'll hand it off to Sandra first to start, sharing more about her background and, what she does.
Thank you so much, Lynn. My name is Sandra Solano, and I'm the founder of Team to Grow. And this is really a concept of holistic wellness that is based in emotional health. My background is in medicine. I am a physician, but early on in my med school career, I knew I did not want to practice clinical medicine. So I actually came to Ohio State University to do my various studies in preventive medicine and public health. Had a very successful career in that field, yet I was emotionally unhealthy and physically unhealthy. I was holding executive positions, leadership positions in very large organizations, and could make decisions very easily.
You can change your biology and how to experience life. I'm like, I'm going to give it a try. Quite frankly, I spend most of my time the first
Historically, I spent a lot of time in corporate America, large Fortune 500 places. And I kind of affectionately joke around with folks and tell them I paid for all of my sins and then they let me go. So I think I'm in good shape right now. And I'm not unlike Sandra in that sense, that leadership role, making big decisions, I had everything that they said that I should want. And then I came to what I call my Solomon moment and asked myself, is this all that there is? Because this is very meaningless to me. So then that began the journey back to me and trying to discover what it is and who I was and all of that good stuff. And I had a real strong burden for people who were in the workplace, whether they were in leadership or otherwise, and how they could bring their life to the center and begin to operate from that place versus operating from the work center and trying to make that take care of everything else, which I live to tell, as I said, it doesn't work very well. So with Spirit of EQ, what we are is we're an emotional intelligence data and people development firm. And we help people, I kind of affectionately say it, manage their thoughts and their emotions so that they can make better decisions. As you know, and it's on display right now in our country and around the world, emotions drive people and people drive results, whether that's a good result or a bad result. And what we do is we help individuals and primarily organizations sort of not solve, but certainly move to a place of where they're operating in that zone of making better decisions, thereby getting the performance they want and the results they want. No silver bullets. We don't sprinkle magic pixie dust on their people, and then tomorrow they wake up and do everything the way that maybe the business owner wants. But we tell them that if they're willing to put in the work and show up to practice, they can find themselves in a place of where they're getting breakthroughs. So that's a little bit about us, and I'm sure we'll talk more about some other things as we go along here. So thank you. Glad to be here.
So Eric, one of the things that I have found, one of the myths that I experience in my leadership positions, and I think is one of the things that when I work with organizations, I'm a hard math trainer, which means I'm allowed to work with groups from 1 to 10,000, is the concept that emotions don't have any space in the workplace. Like we can suppress them and check them at the door, right? So leave your marital problems and your family problems at the door. And then we also tell them, then leave your work problems at the door and don't bring them into your family life. And that's one of the myths that I really want us to talk about today, because I think that especially with entrepreneurship, one of the data that I read that really made the point of how important this is that actually when you look at a 5-year forecast for a new business, an entrepreneur business, people are more likely to run out of heart than to run out of money. So they quit because whatever inspired them to start the business, whatever passion and fire was there, dies with all the other stuff that we have to do as business owners. And I have experienced that as well as an entrepreneur and running my own business. It was way easier to run the Medicaid program for the state than to run my own business. But the reason that happens is because in part we come with that programming that there is no emotional reaction, that we should leave our emotions outside. And obviously that is not human. We have emotions. And one of the things that I always like to talk about, how all emotions are important. I call them the crayons in the crayon box. We cannot make a beautiful picture without all of them. Is the way that we harvest the information that comes from those emotions, or how we use them to transform the way that we experience the world. So actually in hard math, we invite the activation of emotion as part of the way that we change how we feel. And the reason for that is that the brain, for the brain, is the same to remember something that to leave it. It produces the same chemicals. So when I remember a moment that I was very grateful and appreciative, or I felt very cared for, or that I felt deep compassion, my brain is releasing the same hormones and chemicals. Actually, 1,400 different chemical reactions happen in your brain when you recall emotion. And the same happens with the negative emotions, even though we call them depleting, because we don't want to say anything is negative. They all have a space in our life. Some of them deplete our energy. But if we become self-aware that they are happening rather than trying to stuff them down, then we are able to notice them and try to realize, is this emotion going to be useful right now? Or do I need to put a pause and deal with it differently? So that's our first step is self-awareness, and then being able to have the tools of how to pause. And I'm glad that you mentioned practice, because we talk about emotional fitness, that this is kind of going to the gym, right? You are developing a new muscle, an emotional muscle that requires practice. And then you can use that muscle throughout the day. But we need to know the how to do that. And that emotional fitness is what allows us to become aware of what is happening, be able to pause it if it is not serving us well, or be able to do it even if it is not in the way that we always did it before. My children say that I now get upset much less and I recover much faster. But that doesn't mean I don't get upset. There are times that I feel the anger, I push the pause, and I'm like, no, yeah, this is the 10th time I told them to pick up the shoes. I am going to be a little bit angry right now. This is unacceptable behavior. Then we're going to put a limit here. So,
but you know what, Sandra, too, with what you said there, I think is really important because especially when you're in a small business where things are coming at you lightning fast and you don't have a large group of advisors or consultants that can come in and diagnose and help you. We've kind of gotten under this, at least in America, this myth that your emotions, some are your enemy and some are not. And you alluded to it there perfectly, is that ultimately all emotions are of value. What makes them good or bad is what you choose to do with them. I used this analogy before that, you and I, or anyone in this audience, we could be driving on the freeway and just going along, and then someone erratically cuts us off in traffic. And all of us will have the thought, more than likely, that, oh my gosh, that almost caused an accident. Next will come that emotion. Sandra, you might feel anger. I might feel fear. Someone might feel empathy, right? And what we do with it will make the difference, because Sandra, if you take anger and let it run its course, you might decide, I'm going to follow that person and I'm going to ram their rear end for doing that. I might, being in fear, I might freeze and just stop my car in the middle of the freeway. The person with empathy may continue on their way and begin to think, I hope that person's okay. I wonder if maybe they had some health issue. Maybe I wonder if I should call 911 and see if there's a squad that could maybe meet them somewhere, follow, what have you. There's the key differentiator. And again, in our work, it's helping people manage that, helping people to, you alluded to it, to pause and let your emotion kind of communicate to you, which is what they were designed to do anyway, so that, again, you can move to making a better decision. Practically, on a small business front, it might be, do we apply for that PPP loan? Do we lay off? Should we pivot to a more virtual model? I don't know any way, or I would say it this way, I would not want to be in a position where I'm making those decisions purely off of what emotions in those first 6 seconds, if you will, are telling me. I want to be able to manage it, because those decisions are crucial.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to put a little bit of science here and biology, so that we understand this is actually something that is natural and designed for a reason. When we are in an emergency mode, when we're in survival mode, I always say, if the bear is chasing you and is going to attack you, having frontal cortex, the part of the brain that's right behind your forehead, functioning is not contributing to survival. If you are started analyzing and thinking options and possibilities, the bear is going to catch up with you and eat you. So biologically, when we are in a state of alertness, an emergency, of anger, of fear, actually our frontal cortex functions turn off. The brain actually turn off, and we start reacting from predetermined, pre-recorded automatic reactions. So it may be completely irrational to be following somebody down the freeway because I'm angry, but that's because my thinking brain is no longer in charge. Now I'm going with an automatic reaction that for most of us, we're recording in our nervous system by age 7. So we really are going all around acting like 7-year-olds and having reactions from that place. So I think EQ, HeartMath, really whatever tool that actually gives you skills that are able to reprogram those automatic responses. And the first reprogramming is to pause and recognize it's an automatic response. Oh my gosh, why am I doing this? I am in my automatic response brain. So I need to pause. I have tools to pause. And then I'm going to create a new response to the event that is happening.
You know, it's interesting too, Sandra, and I'm just thinking about how history shapes our perspectives about things, and specifically around, you know, you're talking about how we recorded things when we were 7, right? And there's a number of people out there, whether they're business owners or whether they're employees in a small business or what have you, where they might be saying, I don't want to deal with anger. That's just, I'd rather move on. And more than likely, it's associated with some event that created that. And if they're able to understand, again, sort of that emotion is not their enemy, and that it is. And I know this is not easy. I don't want to be here at this time to say, oh, just go ahead and go back to that time when you were 12 years old and deal with that. Because that may be something that you need the help of somebody who's a clinician to help work through that process. But if in a normal, rather healthy state, whatever you want to call it, our ability to tackle that is going to make such the difference as it relates to navigating specifically for today, right? COVID-19 and how we view what it is we're going to do next. And I've shifted, and maybe it's partly because I've had way too many conversations with people who want to talk about all the different dynamics of COVID-19. I want to start talking about, okay, so what's up ahead? How do we live in the next? And I get it. There is no one can say this is how the new normal is going to look. But I do believe we can prepare. And Sandra, I'd love to hear your thoughts about if someone's in that place and saying, okay, so what do I need to do from an emotional health standpoint to prepare for the unknown, if you will?
Absolutely, and I have a unique perspective on this because, like I said, my field was public health, and actually I was part of the executive team that wrote the Ohio Plan of Preparedness for a pandemic. So I spent 18 months of my life back 12, 14 years ago, 2 days a week, thinking about this and thinking what we needed to do, and studying data and history and what will work or not. So what I was not aware at the time was the power of emotions and how right now people are going, and like we would talk about, we go to our automatic patterns. So we are going back because actually right now there's the signals in the environment that are telling us we are vulnerable. The change of routine, the lack of predictability, the lack of concrete facts, because the facts change as we know more, and that's very unsettling. So there is nothing that we can sense in the environment outside us to say we're safe. So the normal reaction of our body is to turn out the alarm and put us into an alarm system back into those patterns. So the first thing that I say is recognize that's what is happening to you and to everybody around you, because that may bring us the ability to become more tolerant. And I wasn't immune to it. With all my tools, I had my own triggers. Being the expert was something that was a source of comfort in my life in the past in this topic. So then being able to move from the expert platform and then being able to just accept that people are coming from that state of mind and being able to identify that with compassion was a process for me. So that will be my first invitation, is to have compassion towards ourselves, to really being able to know that what we are going through is abnormal, is difficult. Our body is reacting how it's designed to react. The bear is chasing us and we cannot see the bear. So that feels unsettling. But then the next step is to then start finding, and again, it's not easy. That's why we have tools. It requires skills to start finding the where of safety and predictability within ourselves. So we can become our own source of safety and predictability. And then when we're able to connect with that inner source and that inner intelligence that in HeartMath knows is very much driven by our heart intelligence. We actually have brain cells in our hearts. So this is not just like a nice talk of like, oh, our heart is powerful. Actually, we have measured and we have studied these brain cells in the heart that communicate with the brain. 80% of the communication goes from the heart to the brain. So actually the heart is sending more information to the brain than vice versa. So by being able to regulate the rhythm of the heart, we're able to send signals to the brain to say it's safe. That's the first thing that happens when we're able to regulate our heart rate. We tell the brain it's safe. We have the space to do that. And that's what creates the pause to be able to do the next best step. And then from that space, it's not about where the heart or the brain is better. The heart is really the ignition key to the brain, because when we do that, then guess what? The frontal cortex comes back on. All of a sudden, we have our thinking skills. And I actually, for me, when I was starting my business, that specific tool that we use for decision making was essential. I needed to have a loan to be able to launch the business and make some decisions to really have a business, not thinking about having a business. And there were a lot of obstacles on that. And I used this tool, and when my brain was activated, was able to find a creative solution, actually remember something that I had not told the bank about, an account that I had that I did not remember having. And then within 12 hours, I had approval and I had a business. So having this part of our brain, the frontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex, is absolutely essential for that decision making. And what in HeartMath now we call to be able to make decisions from managed concern instead of fear. So there's not only two options. There is not just like either I am in fear or I'm going to ignore that this is happening. There is a way to be able to harvest, again, use those emotions. Say fear is normal. This is telling me there is a threat in the environment. How can I transform that energy into energy of managed concern that allows me to make decisions that are going to be more rational and more responsible, and they're going to benefit me and the community and the planet, really.
So, Jacob, I'm not sure if you want to go audio or if you want me to look at the chat. I think there might have been a question or two that might have come over. Did you want to share that? Or Libby?
I think he's saying just chat is fine. So I'm going to read it for you, Eric.
Okay, go. Yep.
You can take this one.
All right.
With an environment, do the same principles around emotional intelligence still apply, or do you alter your approach to dealing with EQ and wellness?
A great question. Our particular perspective and the way that we operate is not so much that you alter the concept or the disciplines, because in general we're talking about who you are at your core. So whether it's a pandemic or whether it's the greatest business environment ever, we're still wanting to help people leverage that process. Again, it's what I alluded to at the beginning of managing thought and emotion to make optimal decisions. But you could also look at it as think, feel, act, right? The idea of what I think, what I feel, and then what I do. So we don't alter it specific to circumstance. I will say, and that's within that great question, is the way that we approach organizations and people, individuals, is that we don't just do a data dump, an information reveal, because that doesn't lead to behavior change. The idea is that we want you to receive that data and to understand it, to give you sort of that launching pad, and then begin a process. And this is maybe going to sound a little strange, but many people have said I'm strange, so this is not going to be so strange. It's almost like we work toward it becoming effortless. The practice of what you do is effortless. For example, I'm a big basketball fan. I'm watching The Last Dance, Michael Jordan. I confess my age. That is my era. But you know what, guys? I don't think back then or even now that Michael Jordan grabs a basketball and then has to tell himself, okay, this is a ball, and I push the ball down with the palm of my hand and I run at a pace to get to that basket. My gut tells me, because of all the work he's put in, all of the practice, he gets that ball and goes. It's effortless. That's what we aspire to help people get to. And that's why I think, again, you're not altering sort of the discipline to the circumstance, because it's applicable regardless of good times, bad times.
Completely agree. It's about the practice just creates new automatic patterns. So it comes out.
I like that.
Response.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I know that, and I know we've been in environments, Sandra, where people will think, well, what do you mean, like, it's going to be effortless? And does this mean no. You're going to put in a lot of work, because trust me, I can tell you from experience, it'll be like walking upstairs backwards at times, right? But the beautiful thing about how we're made is we have this beautiful ability to adjust, adapt, change, all of those different things. It's just the front side pain that sometimes causes people to go the other way, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I always find this point of what we call involution and evolutionary cycles, right? So when people come to work with us, usually they're ready for the evolution. And then they're from work and feeling the change, and you get this release of chemicals, and it feels awesome. I always say, it's like, yeah, this program involves drugs, 1,400 of them, and they're all in your body, so they're free. And it feels fabulous. And then the involutionary process comes. Once you get that, it's like in a spiral. So you feel great, you start changing the way you react. Guess what? The people around you sometimes are not. So the relationships and interactions start changing, and they start being the perfect mirrors of what needs to be addressed next. And then you find that resistance. But just like you with your example of Michael Jordan, he didn't make every single fall shot. He had to practice and miss many, but it was the resistance and the way that he reacted to the resistance that allows people to get better. So if I get frustrated and then quit and say, that doesn't work, I have done it 100 times and 20 times, I failed, so I'm not going to try anymore. Then we're not going to make the next elliptical improvement. So the evolutionary step is as important as the involutionary step, where we actually find resistance again and then get to develop further that muscle. Just like in the gym, you start with 5 pounds, but if I stay with 5 pounds, I am not really going to get my muscle to grow. When I find that to be easy, what do? We increase the resistance. We put 10 pounds, and now I can feel the resistance again. And that's how the muscle grows. It's exactly the same thing with our nervous system and our emotional system. So it is about enjoying the value of the resistance while we may still find the pain of the resistance.
You know what, too, Sandra? I was thinking about, there was a virtual panel a month or so ago that I was on, and this was being a month ago, I mean, so much was so fresh in this environment. So many things had been announced, the shutdowns, the quarantines, and all of these different things. And this particular panel, it was across the globe. So you had people from various countries. And I could tell very quickly, just by the few people I could see that were in the Zoom boxes right on the screen, that there was some genuine concern, if not fear, right? And one of the things that I realized at that time, and I mentioned it on the panel, is that I want to be my best self, regardless of the circumstances. Not because it's going to lead to a great business breakthrough, though that would be great. And not because somehow I'm going to get an award, but it's because that I have time. I've been given the gift of time. And it's too precious for me to be this, I'll be happy when things are going my way. I will be sad when they're not. I will be angry when I don't get what I want, but I'll be overjoyed when people do what I ask them to. I want to be the best person, my best version, even in a pandemic. Because not only is that inspiring, for me selfishly, I don't have time. I just don't. I mean, this period that we're living in right now has made me realize how precious the gift of time is. And I think that to what we're talking about, that work and the resistance, I mean, on the front side of it, it seems like it's a burden. And why do I have to do this? But man, if you can get into that place, and that's my hope for everyone on this panel, this call, if you can get to that place where you will not see resistance as your enemy, but your friend, you will get the breakthroughs you dreamed of. It will happen. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, right? But if you're willing and you're willing to put in the work, the rewards are great.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Libby.
Please.
So, thank you for this. It's fabulous, and I really do want to investigate heart math, and I want to hop onto those videos and practice it. I've been practicing meditation for about 2 years now, and I want to have you. Sorry, my dog is talking to me today. She's very chatty for some reason this morning. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that and sort of demystify it, because for me, I thought you had to have some kind of special like music or bowls that or a bell or I just thought you had to have all this special stuff. And I also thought that I had to do it perfectly, meaning that I had to get to the point where I never had any thoughts in my head for the whole time I was sitting down to meditate. And thankfully I ran across a really great app for meditation, but it was such an aha for me to learn that really the perfect moment of meditation is when all of a sudden you realize you've been thinking and you've gone down a rabbit hole with your thoughts, and to just take a second to come back and focus on your breathing or a sound or whatever it is. So I wondered, to me, that was just like a huge, it was huge permission to just fumble my way through and get a little bit better every day and just keep at it and make it a habit. And so I wondered if you would just talk about that for a while. I assume you're both advocates of meditation. I'm going to make that assumption. So if you would just talk about that a little bit, I think it would be helpful.
Absolutely, Libby. And I was never able to meditate before heart math because I was not able to even get to any place of settledness. We like to also sometimes call heart math meditation on the go. There is a reason why actually many of the largest healthcare centers in the United States have adopted heart math as part of their employee wellness program. Because as a physician, as a nurse aide, you cannot just somebody be having a heart attack and say, well, this is stressing me out, so I'm going to go and meditate for a little while, and I'm going to turn my candles and put my music and do my poses, and then I come back to see what I need to do with you, and we cannot do that. We have to be able to be on the go and be able to be in that space where we call this coherent, that the heart rhythm that turns on our brain. And that is one of the things that I love about HeartMath, is to be able to have the feeling that you may get through meditation, the same chemical reaction in your body, but in the moment. So actually, when we do it, I usually with my clients, I recommend them to start practicing with their eyes open in their practice. So that is something that you can do on the go. This is one of the interesting things. I don't work with children for HeartMath. I have team members that are licensed for the children's program, but I have now, because of Zoom, have been able to watch their practices. You never have to tell a kid to keep their eyes open.
Oh, wow.
Never.
Really?
They automatically do it with their eyes
wow.
open, because they somehow know that this is about connection, not disconnection. So it's different purposes. Meditation is very useful and allow us to be with ourselves and introspect and process. The purpose of HeartMath is actually connection with our brain, and then connection with other, and to be able to connect at a different level. And kids don't just do that automatically. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So if appropriate, I don't know, Libby, you kind of the moderator, will be appropriate if I use 2 or 3 minutes to just walk you through our first tool?
Sure.
So you guys get to experience it live here?
Yeah, let's do it. Also, I wanted to say, Carissa Hansen is watching on Facebook Live, and she said, this is fabulous. So, Carissa, thanks for being out there joining us on Facebook Live. It is fabulous. This is wonderful. Thank you to both of you.
So first, I just want you to notice how your body is feeling right now. Notice any tension or any parts of your body that may be talking. Notice any thoughts and emotions that you may be dealing with. And now I'm going to invite you to bring your attention to the area of the heart. Some of us have not been visiting this area very often, so placing our hand in the heart initially, just to be able to get that sensory input, may be helpful. So just bring your attention to this area, not just think about it, but just really sense the middle of your chest. Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart area a little bit slower and deeper than usual. But this is not deep breath. It's your normal rhythm. A little bit slower and deeper than usual. Some people find it helpful to count to 5 in the inhale, count to 5 in the exhale, or whatever rhythm is comfortable for you. And as thoughts or sensations may call your attention, just notice them. There is no need to fight them or repress them. And just continue breathing in and out of your heart. That's about 30 seconds. Notice if there were any shifts in the way that your body felt, or if your emotions shifted at all. Sometimes when we first practice this, and that's why we always do it, especially in this large gathering, only 30 seconds the first time around, you actually may have a very uncomfortable feeling. Some people may even get tightness in their chest and a feeling of panic, because we are so used to being the alert with the fire alarm on that initially may feel unsafe to turn it off. If that happens to you, you can just release the practice and restart it again. It's perfectly fine.
That was good.
Hey, Libby, I'm sorry, I interrupted you there. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. That was really nice. It was very relaxing. So thank you. I wondered what HeartMath was, if there was some like something super complex about it. So that's so simple.
It is very simple. That's the first step of all our tools. We have over 40 tools, but every single one starts with that heart focused breathing, because it is what creates the pulse in the nervous system. What has happened there is your heart variability, which is how your heart frequency changes over time. It starts going into a pattern that we call coherence, then turns on your communication with your brain and pushes the pause button.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Eric?
Yeah, I was going to say for me, and our experiences, I started with mindfulness with a gentleman by the name of Andy Pudukambe, and he's mostly known because of the app Headspace, and I highly recommend his TED Talk. And it basically is, I don't get the title right, but it's something to the effect of mindfulness in 10 minutes type thing. And it intrigued me to no end. And he's a gifted speaker. So he was able to articulate the power of mindfulness in 10 minutes, and that how you could apply it into your life at intervals that work best for you. But certainly, I think he was advocating 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. And this was along the same time that I took up yoga. And for me, yoga was certainly, it had its physical attraction, but it was a place for me because I was looking for space to where I could calm down my monkey mind. I'm an obsessive thinker by wiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to hear from God. And one of the ways to hear from him for me was to be in a pose, to be in that place. Because what's funny is that when I thought about a ton of stuff and trying to hold a pose, it was very comical. I mean, if there were video, Libby, it'd be right up there.
You would fall over, lose your balance, fall over. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
And at first, I used to think, no, I'm just not being, I need to get my body, maybe I need to stretch a little more in this area. But without fail, even to this day, and I've been practicing for probably 7 years, if I begin to start thinking about the meeting at 1 o'clock and whether or not we're going to do X, or are we going to take that trip, I will fall over without fail. When I'm not, when I'm focused and in that spot, I can hold it. And it's been phenomenal for me. So that's not direct to meditation per se. It just has those elements, but that's what worked for me.
Yeah.
And hopefully those who are out there, who are watching, listening, find your rhythm, find your thing that works for you, because that's going to be the best methodology.
That was another. So I've had several ahas during this session, and that was another one of them. Was it's not about your body with yoga; it's about your brain more than it is about your body, right? There has to be a certain level of flexibility or whatever, kind of, but it's minimal, right? It's more about where your head is.
At least for me.
Yeah, and I would bet a lot of us. I also have a brain that just doesn't stop. It's bombarding me at all times, and I bet most of us do. I'm hopeful that, and I love what you said earlier, Eric, about this time has caused, I think, all of us to sort of go, oh, wow, we actually have a little bit of space to maybe, take a couple breaths during the day or just be calmer. I feel that hugely without racing around all day, driving back and forth across town for meetings. We had another comment from somebody else out there watching on Facebook Live. I definitely do think that there's a lot of work involved for sure to get to the level that you're talking about, but it would make a lot of business owners much calmer, which, I'll elaborate on that, which also leads to just better decisions and better actions, right? If we're all working from a place of calm instead of panic. And welcome Timothy Wolfstar. He's also joined us recently. So
welcome. You were talking about, Libby, about the calmness factor. I mean, if you just think of it just practically and just from a simplistic standpoint, if you're a business owner, do you think you'll get better results by being calm or panicked?
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know of anyone I've ever interacted with, and I haven't interacted with every business owner on the planet, right? But typically when I'm in panic mode, it does not go well.
No, you're right. And Sandra kind of alluded to this before, right? That, we're all racing around all the time in this state of adrenaline. I mean, I think I speak for a lot of people. I think our adrenaline levels might be a little bit lower, although I think there are a lot of people that are really afraid. But that's no way to be operating, right? It has to take a toll after a while on us, emotionally, mentally, physically. So this is really great.
Actually, Livy, we know that because we have done a lot of studies about the cortisol. When we have high cortisol and another hormone we study is called DHEA and low DHEA, we age faster. We don't think as clearly. We actually lose brain hormones. Our immune system gets depressed, and very important for this time. Actually, and to I think it was Shailene's comment. It is actually deceptively simple, as you can experience just even with 30 seconds of doing heart focused breathing. If we were to add, for example, appreciation to that practice, after just 5 minutes of appreciation with heart focused breathing, we observe an improvement in our IgA, which is the compound that fights disease in issues like our first line of defense, that lasts for 6 hours. So 5 minutes causes 6 hours of improvement in your immune system. Now the opposite, fear, panic, anger, causes the opposite. It decreases your defenses for up to 6 to 8 hours. So this has very practical, immediate effects in your body. And we are able, just with 6 weeks of practice, that's kind of the timeline that the studies have been done, with 5 minutes of practice a day for 6 weeks, we can see decrease of the cortisol levels in your body that are measurable. We can see improvements in reflexes, impulse control, job satisfaction. One of the most interesting things, and I want to mention it because sometimes when I talk with business owners, we are always, we have scarce dollars and where are we going to invest them? Mm-hmm. And I think people are more inclined to invest in a marketing and in a marketing strategy and put thousands of dollars in there. But actually, we know our heart is an electric organ and actually creates a magnetic field that is measurable. And whenever we come into interaction with other people, when we're with a client, with a sales call, that magnetic field is being communicated with the other person. That's our first marketing. We are radiating that and it's being perceived by the other person. And it's one of the things that's going to affect the most how that interaction goes. You can say the right words, the right 30-second speech, elevator speech. You can have the right pitch. Mm-hmm. But if your energetic field, your magnetic field is radiating something contradictory to what you're saying, actually is perceived as threatening to the other person. And one of the most amazing demonstrations of this impact, Kaiser Permanente did a study by training nurses in one surgical floor and knowing another one and compare them over time. And we were expecting, because we had data on that anxiety, job satisfaction, all those factors will improve in the nurses that were trained. Actually, HeartMath show improvement in anxiety and depression better than most medications in the market.
Wow.
But the surprise was the patient outcomes. By the nurses washing their hands and doing HeartMath tools in between patient rooms, the trained floor had shorter lengths of stay, shorter infections, lower use of pain medication, and decreased readmission rate. So the outcome of the patient was improved because of the magnetic field the nurse was operating with when they walk into the room. So we are affecting those human interactions when we are able to affect our heart rhythm and how we communicate. So I always say that a leader and a good entrepreneur needs to look into emotional training as part of their marketing and professional development strategy and budget, because most of us, especially as small entrepreneurs, we are the product. So if we are not in the best space, we are not going to be successful and be able to unfold that mission that I was talking at the beginning, to transform that fire into the unfolding of the mission that we want and intend to do.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Yeah, absolutely. And Eric, did you want
Yeah, I was going to say that was great, Sandra. And yes, I agree totally. The investment in emotional health and well-being is key. One of the things that, as you were talking there, it got me thinking about, I'm an emotions guy. And if any of you guys are familiar with the Enneagram, I'm a 4. So, okay. So if you know anything about 4s, you'll understand what I mean when I say that. Yeah. However, we also realize that I know there's some business owners who they're drivers. It's like, okay, I hear you. What am I going to do about this? The fact that my customers are totally shut down. And I hear them, and I just want to tell them, and Sandra, you alluded to it. I know I spoke to it earlier too. And I'm going to change my language a little bit, right? To take some of the softness away and go more direct. Okay. If you want better results, manage your thoughts and emotions. Yeah. That will deliver. And even if it means you find yourself in that place where you're going, this may not work out, you will be positioned to be able to look around because you'll have more curiosity than judgment. Mm-hmm. You won't linger at the locked door. You'll begin to see that you're in a house that has multiple doors. If that's kind of where your wiring is. And I want to be respectful to that because, yeah, I love it when I interact with people who are emotion driven and get the connection. And when we talk about mindfulness, but I also want to be fair to those out there who maybe that's not their style. That's not their angle, right? It's not just for those who, if we could say it, touchy-feely, right? It's not just for those people. It is for the driver. It is for the 8 on the Enneagram that pushes and on and on and on. Now, I want everybody to be in a healthy, best version of themselves. I just want to kind of speak to the style thing, because if you don't, I think the problems that you're experiencing now will just sort of magnify, and you're going to find yourself hitting that brick wall. And there's ways to avoid that. And this is a key way to do it.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I think that's super important because there are all kinds of people out there, right? All 1 to 9.
Yes,
9,
very well
1
said.
to 9, right?
Yes.
On the Enneagram. Could you each give us one way to get started right away? That's, just, for those of us who are maybe the drivers, who just don't feel like they can take the time to slow down, let alone stop for a second and do any of this. What is an easy way to get started for people? And I'll turn to Sandra first and have you.
Well, I would recommend you start with a heart focused breathing. It really starts just, there is no need to stop your brain. There is no need to stop your thoughts. I actually, I do my practice, my 5-minute practice in the morning. I do it in the shower. So while I'm showering, because I don't have time. So I do it in the shower, and that's my practice. I tend to do my meditation in the night before going to bed. But that is such a simple tool, and you can rewatch this. We have lives on my Facebook Live every morning at 8:30 that you can just join. They are 7 to 8 minutes, and then you can practice with us. And there's many videos of that and different people doing it. You can get your favorite coach. And the beautiful thing is that they are really focused to families. So now that you're stuck in your house, maybe with your family, do it together. Do it with your kids. Show your kids later in the afternoon if they're teenagers. Mine don't get up before 1 p.m. So that's, I think, that the best way to start is just to start dialing down wherever you are. And it works for everybody. I was not just a probably an 8, I think is what I am, but I am an INTJ, an ENTJ in the Myers-Briggs. So I was the drive, go, 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 go. I'm still this doesn't change me, but I do understand the people that think like, oh, this is a lot of woo-woo. Believe me, I thought this was woo-woo the moment I was exposed to it. And had I not been trapped in Arizona and could not go anywhere, and I bought the wrong thing, I thought at the moment. But there is a lot of science behind it. That's why I was able to accept it. And the reality is that when I understood that my most important job was for me to be able to be at my best.
Yeah.
And it became my job. I was able to apply the same drive to myself. And to realize that I was going to be the engine behind it. So it doesn't really matter where you are. Really, what you need to, the first step to even do the 1 minute is to realize that you are the product that you're bringing to the world, in your family, in your relationships, in the business. And the same way that you want everything else in your business to be the best, that means that you need to be the best. And once you make that decision and understand that, you can do anything.
Yeah, I see we have another question. It's a really good one too, but I want to give you time, Eric, to give us your way to get started. And then let's discuss, Jacob put a question in, you know, boundaries right now are tough, right? Everybody's working from home, kids are home, spouses and partners are home. And, you know, how do you set boundaries or block time for all those different responsibilities that you have? And so I think that's a really good question. So I'll let you address whatever you want to, Eric, at this point, if you want to talk about how to get started or answer that question.
I'll do the get started. Mine will be really brief, and then we can get to that, because that is a really good question, timely. For us, because we're a data firm, we think it's vitally important to gather data to be able to understand where that person is at. And we're more than happy. I don't have unlimited resources because we are a small firm. But, you know, if you have 5 people, I'm more than happy to give away 5 assessments, because that's really, quite frankly, and again, I don't do this all the time. And for anyone on this call, don't you ever say to anyone in the world that Spirit of EQ gives away free assessments, because we don't. But for the purposes of Small Biz Cares and all of that, we're able to do that. So I think you guys can provide our information from an email perspective. If they reach out to me, if I have the first 5 people, let's say, who reach out to me, we'll give them an assessment that will give them a sense of where they're at. Again, it's not the end of it all. It's not going to change everything in a heartbeat, but it will give them some information that's valuable, and it can lead to whatever pathway that maybe they go to next. And certainly Sandra's approach is another good one. So that's my contribution to what I think they could do next. As it relates to that question, just again briefly, because Sandra, I want to give you an opportunity in that regard too. America specifically in this case, we've done really good at judging. We're great at judging people, situations. We're quick to say who's wrong. We're quick to say who's right, who's the devil, who's an angel. And what we don't realize is that we're not very good at curiosity anymore. And I would say that in that spirit, why not be curious about with the kids being at home and how you're adjusting? I know it may not be what you want, what you like, but curiosity leads to learning. Maybe there's something you can find in that situation that judgment will never give you. Judgment says, I hate this. This is rotten. I can't wait for it to be over. Story over.
Yeah.
Curiosity says, okay, so why am I finding myself on edge about my whole family being here during this time? Where does that come from? What are my emotions telling me? What are they trying to communicate? Keep lathering that, because I'd love to tell you that, hey, I was just on the phone with Mike DeWine before we got on, and he says, hey, let's do it today. Everybody open. Yeah, do your thing. We're back to new normal. So that would be my suggestion around the boundary thing.
That's great. Thank you. And Sandra, do you want to have a final word here on that question?
Well, I want to second Eric. The
Yeah.
curiosity of why is definitely the space to start, because those are signals in the environment. What you are feeling is a signal. And going to the curiosity is why I'm feeling that way is definitely an inquiry worth having. And you know, sometimes we need facilitators like Eric, like me, like other coaches out there to help in that investigation, in that inquiry. I also think that you need tools to be able to do things differently, because the first thing I want you to invite to do, I don't know who asked the question, but just feel compassion for yourself. Feel compassion that this is an unknown, different circumstance. And you are trying to figure it out, and you're trying to figure out with the best tools that you have at the moment. So bringing that compassion through your heart and out of your heart, and just do the breathing, the heart focused breathing, adding that compassion, understanding that this is not easy for anybody and you are doing the best. And we do use some interesting tools. We call it Mind Map, Heart Map, to really help prioritize the day. That's what I do. I use that tool to prioritize my day, not just from what my mind thinks is important, but what my heart knows is important. And if anybody is interested, just like Eric, I have many things that you guys can reach out to. I have a workshop coming up this Saturday online, and there's many ways that you can access the tools. So anybody who's interested can reach out. But
thank you.
I want to leave you with a message of compassion for yourself, for your family, for your coworkers, for the people that triggered you in Facebook. Just increase compassion in the world today.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much. This was incredible. We really appreciate it. And we got lots of nice comments. So thank you very much. And everyone have a great, more relaxed, calmer, compassionate, curious day. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.